There's no vacuums in this video, I swear. Welcome to another episode of Rapidly Aging Technology. Today, we're going to be looking at a very odd machine that has come into my possession. And, well, that's what we'll be doing. It'll be a bit of a mixed bag because there's going to be a little bit of an overflow from a Goodwill Finds video. But I'm not going to combine them completely, otherwise, well, we know my videos are too long to begin with. So to start, to get this out of the way, if you recall from my dual CPU Dell series, it has some old SATA cables in there, and they have been pinched at various times by the door or whatnot. This cable is so mangled I decided to, well, cut it open to see what the inside of a SATA cable looks like, because, you know, who knows what mystery was in there. Well, as it turns out, it's about 6 wires. So, there you go. If you've never known what was inside a SATA cable, now you do. Just one of the many things you'll learn on Rapidly Aging Technology. So what are we looking at here? Well, it's not a vacuum. I know you folks have a fairly low tolerance for too many vacuum videos. So that means we're back to computers. This guy is a fairly interesting machine in multiple ways, externally and internally. From what I can gather, this was used as a music editor. So let's dig right in and see what makes it tick. First, we'll look at the front, which looks like there's kind of a blue and beige and silver theme to the case, kind of a mix of stuff. Up here, there's a few holes. Looks like it could be the location of the PC speaker. When we look in the inside, we'll see that. This is a metallic drive bay cover. I'm under the impression it's not original to this machine because it's kind of out of color match in general, but who knows. If we look down farther, we have this. And this is something special indeed because it's very weird. That is a coffee cup holder. So you can have your beverage while you're doing your music editing instead of using the CD tray. Okay. It's a bit dusty, of course. Even has a little drain in case there's some spillage on each side, actually. Holy smokes. And over here, here's an outlet. This would be a car power outlet. So you can have a cigarette lighter or something. So you got your coffee, you got something to light your cigarettes with while you're doing your music editing. Dear. If we go down a bit farther, we have looks like a CD burner, though it's kind of an interesting name. It's called Burn Proof. I'm not familiar with them, but to me it comes off almost counterproductive. It's a CD drive that's so burn proof that it can't burn a single disc. I'm not sure. That's that. And we have our two 3.5-inch drive bays. And as you look down the machine, you have things that kind of look like buttons, but they're not. They're just accents. Another thing that could be a button, but isn't. And what is probably the hard drive light. And this big thing also not a button, even though I have a case that has a big U, silver U thing that is a button. And finally, down at the bottom, we have our USB ports, our mic in, headphones out, and a covered over FireWire port. I've noticed a lot of cases I've run into had provisions for FireWire, but they never seem to implement it. So there'll always be a blank spot. And there's some sort of clip there. Oh, I see. There's probably a flip down cover, and that was the clip. So there's the front side. Believe it or not, the top is actually fairly interesting. It has this big old handle on it amongst the dust. And this, you know, if this case was in better shape, you know, this big old punch-in crack type thing here, I'd be inclined to keep it and use it for something, because I remember, maybe you folks have had the same experience, of dragging your mid tower over to someone's house and plugging things in and playing games together. That's certainly what I did. And I'm perfectly fine hauling that form factor around, but if it just had a handle on top like this, that'd be excellent. So I'm really disappointed this case is in kind of beat up shape. Otherwise, I'd probably put a build inside of it. We also have more silvery accents. The power button. Got some, oh, these are bumpy, you can feel them. These are bumps on there, probably some activity lights maybe. Yep, a hard drive and power. So what that front light is, I'm not sure if it is anything. And what I think is the reset button. In this gap here, which I think has some ventilation for fans to blow out if you set fans there, there was a floppy disk. Now, what mysteries could be on a floppy disk that is kind of tucked into a section of a machine without a floppy drive? Could it be the mysteries of the universe? Could it be a dangerous virus that's been hidden away by its creator? All right. An Excel worksheet. And it is literally what it said on the floppy disk, which is what NBC, an index NBC binder. So it doesn't have anything on the other sheets. It is just the index. Well, that's disappointing. On the side we have, you know, a nice central side intake fan, which I do appreciate those. Of course, they change the airflow pattern, but they do, wherever there's spot cooling, they seem to do a good job. You'd want it pointed more where the CPU is, but there you go. So I have that, and it's not a bad looking side. Got some windows there. Maybe you can guess what it's running before we open it up. On the back we have some fairly standard stuff. Power supply with an 80mm exhaust, which I do prefer. I like dual fan power supplies. I think it's a good idea, and they look nice on the back side. Then we have two more fan ports with kind of a wavy pattern, and naturally they're unpopulated. I seem to, in my time being around old beige machines with my dad, because he worked for an internet company and he did a lot of stuff with computers, I found that frequently computers of the era just never had the rear fans in. Maybe your experience is different, but that's what I ran into. And I questioned it at one point, like, why don't we just put more fans in? More or less his answer was, they're fine. Of course, a lot of the machines he was working on were pre-Pentium 4, so maybe that's the difference. Over to the side we have, well, a slightly different take on the traditional ATX layout, in that we have the PS2 ports stacked in this direction as opposed to this direction. We have our parallel printer port. We're missing a serial port, and here where you could have, you know, the second serial port, or first, whatever you want to say, it's a VGA out, so there must be some onboard video. We also have some USB ports, 6 in total on the back, which is, you know, pretty usable amount. It was a fairly standard number for Dell machines for a long period of time. We have our Ethernet. We have some onboard audio, and here is where things start to get more interesting. We have a port here with what looks to be a parallel port, more or less, and RCA left and right. So this is an interesting card. When we crack this open, you'll see. We also have a dial-up modem, as is tradition for, well, as is a fairly common thing to see on a machine of, you know, of the beige origins. And then looks like the motherboard designers realized, well, people probably want at least a serial port, so they must have given a little add-on. Also, these are vented rear slots. Looks like this is provisions for a Kensington lock or something like that. In the side panel, has some more venting. So this machine does have, options for some decent airflow. And then this kind of world patterny thing, which may help identify its manufacturer. If any of you recognize that, go ahead and leave a comment on what manufacturer might have made this. I will say that this pattern, this outer pattern, this kind of rounded square stuff going on, is the same pattern that's on my overpowered DOS machine. So maybe there is a manufacturer in common with these. Looking at the bottom of the machine, we have yin and yang, which is interesting, and the feet. And you see the bottom of the little board that has the front USB connectors on it. So I've already taken out the one screw that remained holding it on. So let's get this guy open. All right, so that's held on with a Molex connector, so we'll try not to bump things too badly. Here are the innards, and if you can see there, this board can take a Prescott 800 megahertz frontside bus and DDR 400. So we are dealing with a Pentium 4 era board. From the cooler, you can see it's socket 478. So, all right, it's also a micro ATX board with only 2 RAM slots. That's a little disappointing. I do prefer to have a full-size board with at least 3 RAM slots, 4 if they're doing dual channel. And we have some expansion port things. So let's look at this a little closer with this fan disconnected. Don't forget to use your anti-static wrist strap. Oh gosh darn it. I'm not sure if that's a pro fan or a purred fan. Purred. With 2 hands shaking. The hands of international communism coming together to manufacture fans to spread the winds of communism. I have no idea. It's kind of a strange logo. Alright, so we have an AGP 8X slot, and even tells you, which is handy. ATA 133, so it's got the good IDE interface. As you can see, whoever built this machine decided to use the same cable for the hard drive and the optical drive, which I think normally isn't something we do. But, oh well, they did it. We also have a couple SATA connectors down there. We have PCI, of course. We have that, that special connector, I forget the name of it, that I think Intel pushed for a while for having some secondary peripherals, like your modem and maybe some sound cards. That's there. A header for the serial port. Our dial-up modem, of course. And then there's this guy. This guy is the special thing. So I'm going to grab my screwdriver, and we're going to pull it out and take a look at it. This case uses one of those one slot cover thing that covers all of them. So you undo the screws and then pop it up and out. And then you have individual screws for each one for some reason. So now we'll get this guy undone. And then we'll pop them out. Alright, let's pull it out here. Alright. So we got some sort of MOSFET thing here with what seems to be a white heatsink? Like a flat heatsink disc? I'm not sure. You can tell me what that is. But this is a C-Sound Solo PCI card. What is it? Well, when I looked it up, it turns out that this was an interface to connect an audio interface into the machine. So something that would have XLR ports and whatnot, so you could do your sound mixing and things like that. This was a nice special piece of equipment, and it lends some credibility to the idea that this was used as an audio editing machine. Let's look at it. It's got some old-fashioned resistors on it. Looks like it has a fuse. At least looks like it's fused to me. So this, and I should show a picture if I haven't already, of what the interface looks like. Nice blue box, connects in through this port. I don't know if drivers are available for modern things, but here's the thing, folks. I'm sorry to disappoint you, but none of my my workhorse machines, being the PowerMac G5 and my main machine, IMS Lord Mark III, don't have any PCI ports. And it doesn't make sense for me to try to get that audio interface, try to track one down and see if I can use it. I might, but don't expect me to do that, because I also have to get the software. Yeah, very dusty in here. So with that out of the way, we'll see if there's anything more on the motherboard to just take a gander at before we fire this thing up. So we have a hard drive of some kind, not worth pulling out just to find out. Then we have the back side of that cup holder, which is more or less a look at that. There's a big old fuse that sits in here. And then, oh, I think it's been disconnected. Well, we're going to have to fix that now, aren't we? Yes. All right, so here's some spare Molex connectors that were up near the top. And let's see. There's some SATA. So this one was where the fan was connected into. So we'll just connect into this other guy. There we go. Hopefully this is all safe. So we're going to give that a test. And we're going to test with something I found from Goodwill that's unusual. But looking from here, you just see that there's a heat sink. Nothing too special about this board. I'm trying to see a manufacturer. There it is. It's an ASRock board. The ASRock P4V M800. Not sure if this is well regarded, but I will say that the caps look to be fine all over the board. So I can't really complain about that. Let's see. Is the front USB even connected? No. Wow, they didn't even connect the front USB. Come on, people. I almost forgot the 300-watt power supply from StarTech. It supports Intel Pentium 4 and AMD Athlon. Isn't that nice? It's a single fan. Oh, by the way, this thing vaguely smells of cigarette smoke, so I guess they were smoking music editor. They also have provisions for a couple of internal front intake fans. So, not really a poorly designed case. All right, we've got all the lights out so we'll see the screen better. But let's get the power supply kicked on. Okay, we saw a flash of light from the side. I think that's because the fan glows. I hope that's the fan glowing. All right, smoke test. Oh, it does. That's kind of neat. What's going on? Let's see if we'll get anything on the monitor. Well, I'm not sure where the CMOS reset jumper is. And I don't feel like digging out a manual, trying to find a manual to find where it's at. So we're going to do it the old-fashioned way by removing the CMOS battery. Be more careful when you're doing this than I am. There we go. Pop this little guy out. We're going to let it sit for 30 seconds, press the power button a few times, put it back in, see if it kicks on. Aha! He gave her the old pull out the CMOS battery trick. Yes! So, congratulations. If you've gone this far, you've seen a very simple troubleshooting method on if you get a computer that doesn't want to boot. Resetting the CMOS, one way or the other. So, from what we can tell here, running a 2003 BIOS, perhaps, running an Intel Celeron, 2.13 gigahertz. So they did not throw too much money into this machine as far as its CPU. It's not running a full standard Pentium 4. Looks like it's running, okay, about a gig of RAM, 960 megabytes, kind of a strange number there. Running a Maxtor hard drive. Yes, Maxtor. And Ultra DMA mode 6. I think that should be 133. Smart's been disabled. And the drive is a light on. And since we reset it, the checksum is bad. So let's go in and run setup. So today is, oops, no, there we go. This is Saturday. Happy Saturday, folks. All right. So yes, we have a gig of RAM. 64 megabytes are being used for the video card. It is DDR333. If you're running an 800 megahertz Pentium 4, it's probably going to tell you that you should run DDR400. That's all right. Advanced CPU configuration. Everything should be set to auto. Boot failure guard. Not really sure what that setting is. So everything is just set to auto. Thermal throttling enabled. Thank you, Pentium 4. Okay, so that's that section. Chipset. Okay, we're going to leave everything more or less auto. This is more the RAM stuff. T2 command versus T1. Flexibility option. When it's enabled, it allows better tolerance for memory compatibility. So basically, if your memory doesn't work exactly, turn this on. Interesting. Okay, onboard AGP shared memory. Auto, what happens if you change? Okay, you can change it to specific amounts. It's already at the max, so that's fine. Primary graphics adapter. Let's leave it as default. AGP aperture size has also been set to 64. AGP mode set to auto. AGP fast write disabled. Fast write is one of those features that I think some cards used it, but not really. AGP 3.0 configuration, calibration. Interesting. There's a lot of AGP settings here. I think this is more AGP settings than my other AGP boards, so that's interesting. V-Link speed, play transaction, ID, drive strength, normal. What does that mean? Does that mean it's healthy? Does that mean is it speed? AC97, so that's the old audio codec for HD audio. Leave all that to standard. ACPI. Standard stuff. IDE. So ID is on. SATA is set to RAID. I'm going to just go down to non-RAID. So we got primary IDE, hard drive, and then that's the master. CD drive is the slave, and nothing else is turned on. Okay, IDE bus. Floppy. Well, there isn't one. I'm going to say disabled so it doesn't keep looking for it. Super I/O configuration. Onboard floppy controller. We'll leave it enabled. We'll just say there's nothing in it. Infrared port. Okay, they got ECP, EPP there. USB. We'll do auto. Legacy USB support. Hardware monitor. So we are in the BIOS with a P4 Celeron. BIOS tends to be pretty hard on CPUs. They seem to run more or less at max, and it's at 46 degrees Celsius with a a dirty fan. Of course, the case is open, side panel is off. Not too bad. That's pretty good. I can't complain. Boot settings. Boot from network. No. So floppy drive first. Let's move that up. I always like to check the CD drive first. Maxtor. Google drives. This is floppy. CD drive. There's CD drive. Security. There's no passwords, thank goodness. Save changes and exit. It's a nice crisp sound. Oh, listen to that hard drive. All right. Now I can't remember who was the admin, but I broke into all of these. So let's try 7. All right. So it logged in quick. I wanted to change the background because I don't want to. I think it's a privacy thing. I don't want to point out the company or group that was using this. You know, so I'll leave them alone. So I changed the background because I had the kind of their logo or whatnot. But you know, we got some interesting things here. They did have the taskbar on auto hide, which is strange. There's the solo tray for the audio interface. Let's see, there's nothing in the video folder. There are some tracks here. Let's see if anything will play. Okay, classic view, please. Thank you. Sound and devices. Ah, default playback device. Oh, is it not? Did they not put in the drivers for the yes. It's almost as if the audio is disabled. Did I overlook something in the BIOS? Possibly. So yeah, there's nothing really pointing to the onboard audio. That's interesting. We're just going to plug the audio into one of these USB to audio adapters. All right, now that's fired up. Okay. All right, after a reset and then making sure to switch it from a no sound scheme to a sound scheme, let's see what Vocal Check does.
All right, here we go again, fellow people. I am getting very frustrated that I've deleted all the files where I've made errors. I'm now getting the levels that I need, and I know that I'm recording voice practice. So,
Okay, we got some sound there. Let's try something else.
Chicken, 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 da 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 da.
Okay. So clearly some just fiddling around with different sounds. Let's see this guy. There's a video that says feed the machine. Will this play? So this is something to point out. The last time I turned this machine on, when I first got it, this would actually crash the machine. So something's changed for the better. Maybe it's because there was no real audio device. But I'm going to skip around because I don't want to do any copyright stuff. Interesting. So there we go. So this is the machine. But most of the files let's try Gary, whatever that is. So I'm not going to showcase their personal files, but if there's more music or more sounds buried on this thing, then I would like to showcase it. And let's see. So it looks like they were using some okay, so that's strange. Use anyway. So you use Sonar 3 as their music editing software. Okay, close. Something that I have never fiddled with. Don't know if this brings back any memories for any of you folks. And there's Roxio. What's Acid? Hear that hard drive rattling away. Is there still a... That seems to be silent. Let's see. SoundForge. So they definitely had a number of programs they were using. They'll open. Oh, what's that? Okay, it seems to be silent. And of course, Nero, Vegas Video. Is this the background of Sony Vegas? I'm not sure. File. Open. Nope. So they may have scrubbed this machine, or more or less wasn't this profile that was ever used. Let's try Yon. And this looks like a default, probably never used profile. So that's the showcase of the machine itself. I think I'm going to keep the motherboard and CPU and that sort of stuff and scrap the case. I'll probably take the hard drive, and if there's any music buried on it, I'll probably try to salvage that and hold on to it. You never know. Probably nothing of my taste that I'll enjoy. Okay, it's not pictures. I wanted music. No. I think this guy. Okay. And they really did not leave much on here. Windows playlists. The codecs are missing, so that can't play it. Interesting. Anyway, so that's the machine. We've successfully gotten it turned on. You've seen what it is. This was an old audio studio machine. And I guess it goes to show you that hardware-wise, you really don't need all that much to get sound editing up and running. You need your audio interface and some software to fiddle with it, but you can run it on a Celeron. Don't need a dedicated graphics card, of course. So they were just using what they need. And maybe you need a cup of joe and a cigarette while you're doing it. And this machine had provisions for that. Well, the final question I have is, how do we make sure that that actually works now that I've plugged it back in? Because the machine is in fact functioning with that plugged in. Well, that comes to the Goodwill find. Fold-powered 40-channel Help two-way Citizens Band radio system. This is an old device meant to be an emergency CB radio that you can just keep in your trunk. And it comes completely in its box. And that's probably because the person who had it did exactly that. So let's get this cracked open here. Take off the outer sleeve. And inside, where we're going to find a bunch of registration information, including a CB card for a man who lived in Newburgh. I'm going to cover over everything, but an application to get his CB license from 1982. So back then you needed a license to operate CB, just kind of like a ham radio. Well, not just like, but in a similar manner. So here we have this guy. Big old CB radio. So we're going to do channel 9 is the emergency. We don't want to do that. Let's go to channel 1, and then we're going to see if we can talk to myself. So the idea behind this is that you have a roof-mounted antenna, so you can get yourself some extra range, and when there's a problem, you crash or whatnot, there should be probably some power in your battery, and that's all that's going to be needed to get this going. So you pull this guy out, put it on top of your car, and start calling for help. So, yeah. On the base of this unit is for power, and then the antenna. The antenna. Now you want to set the antenna on something metal, and if you're transmitting for any length of time, you want to make sure that more or less that it's operating properly. I can't remember the measurement, but more or less you want to make sure that there's the power isn't just kind of, it's actually being bounced out of it rather than piling back in. Look into CB radios and the measurements you need to do to get them working right. I forget the name. So, we've got the antenna just kind of set up. Now we're going to plug it into power, and hopefully nothing dies. Okay, plugged in. Well, either this is dead or that is dead. So I'm going to have to test this in my own car at some point. And see if it'll work there. But it doesn't seem to be working here, which might be why this was actually unplugged from the machine, because it didn't work anymore. That's a shame. Oh well, we gave it a go. Please like and subscribe and hit the dingy button, the bell, to get notifications when I put up a video. As you folks know, it's really infrequent. It's not. I'm not one of those daily video guys. So an email once in a while saying that I have a video up shouldn't be too much of an issue. Anyway, thanks for watching. I hope you found this interesting. This strange audio editing machine, and this potentially good or potentially trash Goodwill find. And I'll give you an update on that after I try it in my car at some point. So have a great day, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.